So I've been messing with this thing a lot, trying to get it back together. Get away, Blackie, get out of here. You're gonna get killed, you dumbass. And part of the problem I've had consistently is I can't get the last 22 millimeters of closure here, which I now have, obviously. But, you know, I would have a bolt on each side, carefully cranking it forward with no torque on the bolts or the bell housing, and it would go right up. I have my camera now that's up inside there, and I could see that I was into the clutch. Get away. God, this fucking cat, man, you have no idea. And I could see it was going in the shaft, no problem. Your forward reverse right here, make sure you keep it covered at all times. There's a spiral gear, beveled gear, helical gear, whatever you want to call it. There's a flat gear towards the back. You can easily get a screwdriver in there and move that. That will move your transmission gear into your clutch. And it's pretty much 1-to-1. If you just move it one tooth, you've moved the clutch one tooth. Once you get past that, you're going to hit your PTO shock absorber. And the reason for the camera was because this thing kept stopping at 22 millimeters away, I don't know what the hell I'm hitting. And if I tighten it down like 2 millimeters more and release it, it bounces back. Obviously, it's hitting something, bouncing back, hitting something, bouncing back, or at least that's what I thought. And so once you get your transmission shaft into your clutch, then you got to get the PTO shaft and the PTO shock absorber. You are such a pain in the ass. This cat will scratch you and bite you, and I've got to be careful. Will you just get down? You're totally in the way. Come on, get down, Blackie. Get down. Get down. So I found this cover. 2 of the bolts are underneath here, but I found this lifts right up with a crowbar, and you can get those 2 bolts out in the back. Then this doesn't want to come off. You've really got a hammer on it. They got a sealer on it. When you don't have your hand in here doing something, keep that cover on, because you don't want any of your tools or something to fall down in here. So this is your electric hydraulic PTO clutch, and in the front of it, God, this fucking cat, get out of here. Hold on, I get rid of this fucking cat. Get. God damn, you have no idea what a pain in the ass this is. So, I have my flashlight. This is turning the back, but right down in here, you can turn the front. So, right here, I can't turn it right now because I'm engaged, but you can hear it. And it's pretty much going right in there, but what I did was I would slowly crank the screws in 1 millimeter at a time until I felt it drag. Then I would sit here and twist this and get it clicking on the teeth and going real slowly on just one bolt until I felt it engaged. Then I knew it was in there. So after getting it in the clutch and getting it in the PTO, heading towards the pilot, I can't get it past 22 millimeters of gap. And I'm like, is it not going in the pilot bearing? Well, the thing is, it's 22 millimeters, but the little piece on the end of the transmission shaft is not 22 millimeters. It's a lot less than that. So it can't be hitting the pilot because it hasn't got there yet. So for some reason, it's keeping it from going the last 22 millimeters. I think I may have figured it out because it's not hitting the PTO and it's not hitting the clutch. And the clutch is the same as the old one, even though it's a different brand. There's nothing for it to hit and stop it. I think what it is bind. I think that by the time that the transmission shaft is in the clutch, which is in the pressure plate held firmly, and then it gets in the PTO shaft, and I'm going, I think, 8 millimeters in, and it binds. And it's got to go a lot more than 8. It's got to go 30. I think what's happened at that point is you've got the transmission shaft on the clutch, the PTO shaft on the PTO shaft, okay? And what I need to do is to depress the release bearing. Take pressure off the pressure plate so that the clutch can drop in a little bit better alignment. And I think that's where the bind's coming from. Now, I tried to do this a lot earlier. I don't think I was at 22 millimeters gap. I think it's a little bit more. And the clutch won't engage there. the throwout bearing, okay? And you can't go much further. You can go a little bit off past where you're supposed to, but you got to be careful. You don't want to fling your damn bearing off. So what you got to do is, I'm going to take it back apart and put the clutch and pressure plate back in. Get it all back up to 20 millimeters. The bolts will hold it and keep it from coming back when the pressure plate's, activated. And hopefully, it's bind between the PTO and the clutch disc, and that when I pull this clutch up and engage the pressure plate, the clutch will jump around a billionth of an inch where it needs to be to get rid of the bind and let me slide it right back in there. But the reason I took it out and put this back together was just to make sure and verify it will definitely go beyond 20 millimeters, okay, without the clutch in there. And so if it's going in there without the clutch in there, there's only two things it can be. The clutch is keeping it from going in the rest of the way, or it's bind. And I've compared this clutch disc to the other clutch disc. I can't see anything that would cause it to stop the transmission shaft from going in. And I have a camera in there and I can see that I still have splines going into the clutch. So the only thing it can be, it's got to be bind. So I'm going to go get another Coke. I'm going to unbolt this bitch. I'm going to roll it back. I'm going to re-torque this stupid pressure plate on here one more time. Then I'm going to roll it all forward and start putting them screws back in there. Once I get to 20 millimeters of gap, I'm going to engage that and see if it unbinds. I was also taking some measurements to find out, if you don't have a camera, where can you expect things to grab at. I think 30 millimeters is where the PTO shaft is engaging, where you need to get over here and mess with this. It's more than 30 millimeters before the clutch engages. I'll have to measure that and see. Once I get in here and do it the final time, I'll measure it and see and put that on there so we all know. Because then you'll know. See, the other thing I do is I take this, okay, and I go around the bell housing and make sure it's even, top, bottom, left, right. I keep it even the entire time using that measuring tool. This is a huge pain in the ass. It hadn't been bad until you're trying to put it back together. And I think I've got 5 or 6 days getting this last 20 millimeters till I think I finally figured out that what it is, because I originally assumed it's hitting the clutch. It's hitting the clutch, okay? And I don't want to break the clutch. I'll go buy a regular New Holland clutch, whatever. But when I put the camera in there, it was actually in the clutch already. I could see it, and as I screwed it together, I could see it going into the clutch until we got to where it stopped and acted like it was hitting something. And it could be I could have just tightened it down and go right in there past the bind, but I think the thing to do is to release the pressure on it. So anyhow, let me get my cover back on here, because you sure as shit don't want anything falling down in this thing, man. But, I was thinking maybe, remember I warned you about pulling on that transmission shaft? Maybe it had jumped out 10 millimeters and was screwing everything up, but the flywheel's in it, the pilot bearings in it, transmission shaft's in it, and it's almost, the only reason it's not closed more is I didn't want to have to try to pry it back off, because it's, got its pins in there that are starting to go into the case. So stay tuned.